Emergency vows. Iris Morgan stared at the laboratory eviction notice with hollow eyes. 4 years of research into regenerative medicine, 4 years of promising breakthroughs in cellular repair, and now everything would be dismantled in 72 hours. Dr. Morgan? Her assistant knocked softly. There's someone here to see you. Iris didn't look up. Unless they have $2 million to save this lab, I'm not interested. Actually, came a deep voice with an unusual cadence, I have considerably more than that sum. Iris raised her head. The man in the doorway was tall, his features striking in a way that defied conventional attractiveness. His skin had an unusual undertone that looked almost lavender in the harsh laboratory lights. He wore dark glasses despite the dim interior, and his tailored suit couldn't quite hide his unusual physique. Who are you? Iris asked, too exhausted for politeness. I am Vex Norazra, he said, removing his glasses to reveal eyes with vertical pupils that contracted slightly in the light. I represent the Celestial Diplomatic Corps. Iris blinked. The Celestial Alliance, 3 alien civilizations that had made contact with Earth just 5 years ago, remained mysterious despite establishing embassies in major cities. Their presence had revolutionized some technologies, but they remained selective about sharing medical advancements. Why would a celestial diplomat be interested in my failing lab? Vex studied the equipment around them. Your work on cellular regeneration has caught our attention, particularly your research into treating mitochondrial degradation. Iris felt a flicker of professional pride through her despair. That research dies in 72 hours when this equipment gets repossessed. Not necessarily. Vex placed a small metallic cube on her desk. It projected a holographic document that rotated slowly. I have a proposal. Iris scanned the glowing text with growing disbelief. This offers complete funding for my research for 5 years. Unrestricted. With certain conditions, Vex added. Which are? First, you will share all research data with me personally. His vertical pupils contracted slightly. Second, you will permit me limited observation access to your medical procedures. Iris frowned. You want to spy on human medical techniques? Why not just ask the World Health Organization? I am interested specifically in your approaches, Vex said. There is one additional requirement. The last section of the document rotated into view. Iris read it twice, certain she had misunderstood. Marriage? She whispered. You want me to marry you? A legal formality, Vex said dismissively. Celestial diplomatic status is complicated. Marriage to a citizen provides certain operational freedoms I require. So I'd be what? Your green card marriage? Vex tilted his head slightly. An imprecise but not inaccurate comparison. Iris ran a hand through her disheveled hair, mind racing. $2 million would save her lab, but $5 million would transform it. She could complete her trials. Develop treatments for conditions currently considered untreatable. The children's hospital cases she consulted on, kids with mitochondrial diseases that slowly destroyed their bodies, might have a fighting chance. Why me? She asked finally. You have no family entanglements, minimal social connections, and your work keeps you isolated, Vex stated with clinical detachment. You are also uniquely positioned at the intersection of research I need to observe. Iris should have been offended by his assessment, but exhaustion and desperation dulled the sting. He wasn't wrong. At 34, she had sacrificed everything for her research. Relationships, family, any semblance of normal life. The marriage would be in name only, Vex continued. Separate living arrangements within the same residence. A purely professional arrangement. Iris looked at her life's work surrounding her. The equipment about to be dismantled, the samples that would be destroyed, the patients who would lose hope. If I agree, when would this happen? Immediately. The funding must be processed before your eviction deadline. Iris stared at the alien before her. Not just non-human, but utterly foreign in ways she couldn't fully comprehend. She was a scientist dedicated to saving lives. If marrying this stranger could make that possible. Where do I sign? She asked. Vex's expression remained unreadable as he extended a stylus. Welcome to our arrangement, Dr. Morgan. 2 days later, Iris stood in a sterile government office, speaking rehearsed vows to a being who watched her with those strange vertical pupils. As a small metallic band was placed on her finger, she wondered exactly what kind of devil's bargain she had just sealed. Clinical distance, the mansion that Vex had acquired for their arrangement, sat on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by privacy walls and security systems far beyond standard Earth technology. Iris's first impression was of clinical perfection: high ceilings, minimalist furnishings, and a suspicious absence of anything that might be considered decorative. The East Wing contains your private quarters and a fully equipped home laboratory, Vex explained as they crossed the vast entrance hall. I have taken the West Wing. Iris nodded, trying not to be overwhelmed by her new surroundings. And the lab at the university? Already secured. Your team has been notified that funding is restored. You may resume work tomorrow. Iris exhaled with relief. Whatever this strange arrangement entailed, at least her research was safe. Thank you, she said quietly. Vex paused, studying her with those unsettling pupils. Gratitude is unnecessary. This is a transaction beneficial to both parties. The first week established their routine. Iris left early each morning for her university laboratory, working with renewed determination now that financial constraints had evaporated. Vex appeared occasionally, observing silently from a corner, taking notes on a device Iris couldn't identify. Their evenings passed in separate wings, connected only by the automated house system that delivered meals to each of them at precise times. Iris had expected to feel constantly watched in this arrangement, but instead experienced a profound isolation. On the 8th night, unable to sleep, Iris wandered into the central kitchen for tea. She was surprised to find Vex there, standing motionless by the window, his purple skin luminescent in the moonlight. "Do you ever sleep?" she asked, filling the electric kettle. Vex turned, his expression unreadable. "My species requires different rest cycles than humans." Iris nodded, trying not to stare at the subtle patterns that seemed to shift beneath his skin when he moved. "Different how?" "We enter deep rest states for shorter periods but at more frequent intervals," he replied, watching her prepare her tea with evident curiosity. "The concept of a single extended unconscious period is inefficient." Iris smiled slightly. "Humans are inefficient in many ways." "Yes," Vex agreed, though without the judgment she expected. "Yet you accomplish remarkable things despite your limitations." The compliment, delivered so matter-of-factly, caught her off guard. "My research interests you that much?" Vex approached the counter between them. "Your approach to cellular regeneration without genetic manipulation is unique across the 12 worlds we've studied." 12 worlds, Iris repeated softly, momentarily forgetting her tea. "I can't imagine what you've seen." Something flickered across Vex's features, an emotion Iris couldn't identify. "Your imagination would likely be more fascinating than the reality." They stood in silence as Iris finished preparing her tea. As she turned to leave, Vex spoke again. "Your most recent trial subject, the child with Leber's disease. How is she progressing?" Iris paused, surprised he had been tracking specific patients. "Sophia, her mitochondrial function improved 12% after the first treatment. It's promising, but not enough yet." Vex nodded. "You will succeed." It wasn't a question or even encouragement, simply a statement of fact delivered with absolute certainty. "How can you be so sure?" Iris asked. "I have observed your methods, your determination." His vertical pupils contracted slightly.
"You approach problems differently than my people would."
Less systematically, perhaps, but with an intuitive leap that compensates. Coming from Vex, this seemed like high praise. Iris felt a strange warmth at his assessment. "Good night, Vex," she said, finding herself suddenly uncomfortable with the feeling. As weeks passed, their coexistence settled into patterns. Vex's presence in her university lab became normalized. Her team initially responded with nervous fascination to the alien observer, but gradually accepted him as a silent fixture. What Iris didn't know was that Vex maintained extensive records of her when she wasn't, watching, monitoring her sleep patterns, analyzing blood samples collected from discarded bandages when she cut herself working, studying the cellular composition of hair strands left in her brush. Each night when Iris slept, Vex transmitted detailed reports to his superiors about the unique physiological responses humans displayed during cellular regeneration treatments. What he didn't include in those reports were his growing observations about Iris herself, her determination when faced with setbacks, her gentle manner with patients, the quiet humming when she believed herself alone. These observations served no scientific purpose, yet Vex found himself collecting them with the same precision he applied to his official research, an irregularity he could not explain even to himself. Forbidden diagnosis. 3 months into their arrangement, Iris noticed subtle changes in Vex. His normally perfect posture occasionally faltered. Twice she caught him leaning against walls when he thought no one was watching. The luminescent quality of his purple skin had dimmed, becoming ashy in certain lights. "Are you feeling all right?" she finally asked one evening as they passed in the hallway connecting their separate wings. Vex straightened immediately. "My condition is optimal." Iris crossed her arms. "I'm a doctor, Vex. I observe physiological changes professionally." "Your expertise applies to human biology," he countered. "True, but some principles are universal." She hesitated before adding, "I've been studying the celestial medical journals you provided." Something flickered in Vex's expression. Surprise, perhaps. "For your research?" "Partly," Iris admitted. "And partly because I was curious about you." Vex seemed genuinely perplexed by this statement. "Why?" The question was so straightforward that Iris found herself answering honestly. "Because we're married, even if it's just on paper. Because you live in my house and fund my research. Because you're a sentient being who appears to be unwell and helping is what I do." Vex studied her for a long moment. "Your concern is unnecessary." "Let me be the judge of that," Iris countered. "Your species experiences cellular degradation under certain conditions according to the journals. Similar to human mitochondrial disorders but affecting different organelles." Vex's posture stiffened. "You have been thorough in your reading." "It's why you're interested in my research, isn't it?" Iris stepped closer, professional curiosity overriding her usual caution around him. "You're not just observing for diplomatic purposes. You're ill." "This discussion is inappropriate," Vex said sharply, turning to leave. Iris caught his wrist without thinking. His skin felt unusually cool against her fingers, and beneath her touch she felt a subtle tremor. "Vex, if you're suffering from cellular degradation, my research might help you, but I need data, readings, samples, information about your baseline physiology." Vex looked down at her hand on his wrist, an unreadable expression crossing his features. After a moment, he gently extracted himself from her grip. "My mission parameters do not include becoming a research subject," he said quietly. "What about your parameters for survival?" Iris challenged. Something changed in Vex's eyes, a vulnerability she hadn't seen before. "The cellular degradation affecting me is terminal by both our world's standards. That is why I was selected for this mission. My condition will not interfere with our arrangement." Iris felt cold shock wash through her. "You're dying and you didn't think that was relevant to mention?" "My estimated functional duration exceeds our contractual period," Vex stated with clinical detachment. "Your research will be fully funded regardless." Iris stared at him, suddenly seeing their arrangement in a completely different light. "That's why you're really here, isn't it? You're gathering data on my research as a last-ditch effort to save yourself." "Not myself," Vex corrected quietly. "Others of my kind suffer from this condition. I was already too far progressed when your research was identified. I gather information for those who might be saved." The selflessness of his mission struck Iris unexpectedly. She had assumed his interest was bureaucratic or exploitative. The reality was far more noble and heartbreaking. "Let me try to help you," she said impulsively. "My lab, my research, we could adapt it for your physiology." Vex studied her with an intensity that made her skin prickle.
Why would you do this?
"Our arrangement does not require it." Iris struggled to articulate something she herself didn't fully understand. "Because I don't want you to die," she finally said simply. For the first time since she'd met him, Vex seemed genuinely speechless. That night, Iris worked until dawn in her home laboratory, reviewing everything she knew about celestial physiology and her own research protocols. When morning came, she found a data crystal outside her door containing Vex's complete medical profile, his silent consent to her offer of help. What neither of them acknowledged was the boundary they had just crossed. From clinical arrangement to something far more complicated. "Critical decision. Your cellular markers are improving," Iris told Vex as she studied the holographic display above her laboratory table. "The modified treatment is slowing the degradation." 2 months had passed since Vex had agreed to become her patient. Their relationship had shifted subtly during this time. Vex still maintained his professional distance, but he now joined Iris for dinner several times a week, asking questions about her day that went beyond scientific inquiry. "Slowing is not reversing," Vex observed, studying the same display with clinical detachment. Iris pushed a strand of hair behind her ear, fatigue evident in her movements. She had been working double shifts, treating her regular patients at the university lab during the day, then developing Vex's treatments at night. "We're making progress," she insisted. "Each iteration gets us closer." Vex watched her with an expression she had learned to recognize as concern, though he would never name it as such. "You are overextending yourself." Iris waved away his observation. "I'm fine," but she wasn't fine. For weeks, she had been ignoring warning signs in her own body. Dizziness, fatigue, occasional numbness in her fingers. She attributed these symptoms to overwork and stress, too focused on saving Vex to consider her own health. As she reached for another sample, the room suddenly tilted. Iris grabbed the edge of the table, knocking over equipment as darkness crowded the edges of her vision. "Iris?" Vex's voice seemed to come from very far away. She tried to respond, but found she couldn't move her lips. Her legs gave way, and she was vaguely aware of falling. Cool arms caught her before she hit the floor, and then nothing. Iris woke to find herself on the examination table in her own lab. Vex stood over her, using equipment she didn't recognize to scan her body. His normally impassive face showed clear alarm. "What happened?" she managed to ask, her voice weak. "You collapsed," Vex replied, his attention focused on the readings. "You are experiencing systematic neural degradation." Iris tried to process this information through her foggy mind. "That's not possible. I don't have any genetic markers for neurodegenerative disorders." "This is not a genetic condition," Vex said grimly. "Your symptoms indicate exposure to tachyon radiation." Iris frowned. "Tachyon radiation doesn't exist on Earth." Vex's expression shifted to something she couldn't interpret. "It does not originate on Earth, no." Understanding dawned slowly through her disoriented thoughts. "You mean celestial technology?" Vex nodded once. "Specifically my monitoring equipment. I did not realize humans would be sensitive to its emissions." Iris tried to sit up but found she couldn't coordinate her movements. Fear began to register through the confusion. "How bad is it?" Vex hesitated, which told Iris everything. He never hesitated. "Your nervous system is failing," he finally said. "At the current rate of degradation, complete neural collapse will occur within 48 hours. Iris processed this with the strange detachment that sometimes comes with catastrophic news. "Is there a treatment?" "Not in human medicine," Vex replied. Something in his tone made Iris look at him more closely. "But in yours?" Vex turned away, his shoulders tense. "Celestial medicine could reverse the damage, yes." "Then why do you look like that's bad news?" Vex's hands clenched at his sides. "Because my directive explicitly forbids sharing advanced medical technology with humans. The cultural contamination risks are considered too great." Iris felt cold understanding wash through her. "So you can save me, but you're not allowed to." "Correct." The word seemed to cost him physical pain. "And what happens if you break that directive?" Vex turned back to her. His vertical pupils contracted to thin slits. "I would be immediately recalled and likely imprisoned for treaty violation. All diplomatic relations would be reviewed. Your research funding would be terminated." Iris closed her eyes, the reality of her situation sinking in. Her life versus Vex's mission, her research and potentially Earth's relationship with the Celestial Alliance. "Then the answer is simple," she whispered. "You follow your directive." Vex moved closer, his cool hand unexpectedly taking hers. "That is not acceptable." Iris opened her eyes in surprise. "You'd risk everything, why?" For a long moment Vex didn't speak. When he did, his voice had lost its usual clinical tone. "Because in studying human connections, I appear to have formed one," he said quietly. "I do not fully understand it, but I find I cannot accept your death as a necessary outcome." Before Iris could process this unprecedented admission, Vex had activated a communication device. He spoke rapidly in his native language, the musical tones sharp with what sounded like urgency. When he finished, he turned back to Iris. "I have notified my superiors that I am performing emergency medical intervention to save a human life due to accidental exposure to our technology." "They are displeased. What will happen to you?" Iris asked, concern for him momentarily overriding her fear for herself. "That is irrelevant at present." Vex began preparing equipment she had never seen before. "What matters is stabilizing your condition before neural damage becomes permanent." As consciousness began to fade again, Iris felt cool fingers against her temples and heard Vex's voice, uncharacteristically gentle. "Trust me, Iris. I will not let you die." Healing bonds. Iris woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. She lay in her own bed. Though she had no memory of returning to her bedroom, her mind felt unusually clear, her body weightless after weeks of unacknowledged discomfort. "You are awake." Vex's voice came from beside her. Iris turned to find him seated in a chair near her bed, watching her with those strange vertical pupils that she had somehow grown accustomed to. "You saved me," she said, memories of her collapse and his forbidden intervention surfacing. Vex inclined his head slightly. "The neural regeneration was successful. You will experience no lasting effects." Iris sat up slowly, testing her limbs and finding them responsive. "What happened with your superiors?" Something like a smile briefly touched Vex's features. They were indeed displeased. However, they conceded that since the damage was caused by our technology, intervention was justified under emergency protocols. "So you're not being recalled?" Relief colored her voice. "Not immediately, no." Vex hesitated. "However, our arrangement has been modified." Iris tensed. "My research funding remains intact," Vex assured her. "But my role has changed. I am now officially designated as a medical cultural exchange liaison, the first of my kind, meaning, Vex continued, moving to sit on the edge of her bed, "that I am permitted to share certain medical technologies with your research team under strict protocols. My superiors believe that since boundaries were already crossed, we might as well establish formal channels for exchange." Iris stared at him in disbelief. "That's incredible. We could help so many people." "Yes." Vex's hand moved tentatively toward hers, then stopped. "There is something else we must discuss." Iris looked at his hesitant gesture, then deliberately placed her hand over his. "What is it?" Vex's skin warmed slightly beneath her touch, the subtle patterns beneath its surface shifting in what she had come to recognize as emotional response. During the neural regeneration, our minds were briefly connected. It is a necessary component of the procedure. His normally steady voice faltered slightly. "I experienced your thoughts. Your feelings." Iris felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Everything? Not specific memories, but emotional patterns. Including..." He paused, seemingly searching for words. "Your feelings toward me." Iris looked down at their joined hands. "I see." "I do not," Vex said, unexpected frustration in his voice. "These connections between us, they were not part of our arrangement. They are inefficient, distracting, and..." He trailed off. "Unwelcome?" Iris suggested quietly, beginning to withdraw her hand. Vex caught it, holding her in place. "No, unexpected but not unwelcome. They are the reason I chose to risk everything to save you." Iris studied his face, seeing past the alien features to the being beneath. One who had sacrificed his mission parameters, risked his position, all to save her life. "Our arrangement has evolved," she said softly. "Yes." Vex moved closer, his free hand rising to touch her cheek with gentle curiosity. "I find myself experiencing emotions my species typically suppresses. They are overwhelming." Iris smiled. "Welcome to the inefficient human experience." "Is there a protocol for this situation?" Vex asked, genuine uncertainty in his voice. Iris laughed softly. "Not really. We usually just make it up as we go along." "Improvisation is not my strength," Vex admitted. "Then let me lead," Iris suggested. She leaned forward slowly, giving him time to withdraw if her interpretation of his feelings was wrong. Instead, Vex remained perfectly still, watching her with intense curiosity as she pressed her lips gently against his. The contact sent an unexpected warmth through her body. Vex's skin tasted faintly of ozone and something sweet she couldn't identify. After a moment of stillness, he responded tentatively, learning the unfamiliar gesture with characteristic concentration. When they separated, Iris saw the patterns beneath his purple skin glowing brighter than she had ever witnessed. "That was not in any cultural briefing I received," Vex said, his usually measured voice slightly unsteady. Iris smiled. "Some things you have to experience firsthand." 1 year later, the Morgan Noor Azra Medical Research Center opened its doors, the first collaborative hospital utilizing both human and celestial medical techniques. Iris's regenerative therapies, enhanced by Vex's knowledge, had already saved dozens of patients previously considered untreatable. Their marriage, once a mere legal arrangement, had transformed into something neither of them could have anticipated: a bridge between worlds, both personal and professional. In their private garden behind the hospital, Iris watched as Vex meticulously tended to plants from both their worlds growing side by side. "Your cellular regeneration is holding steady," she noted, reviewing his latest scan results. "The degradation has completely halted." Vex straightened, the afternoon sunlight making his healthy purple skin shimmer. "Thanks to your inefficient human intuition." Iris smiled at his attempted humor, a new development he was still perfecting. "We make a good team." Vex approached her, no longer hesitant in his movements as he drew her into an embrace. "We make an optimal pair," he corrected seriously. Iris laughed, resting her head against his chest where two hearts beat in perfect synchronization. One adaptation from their shared medical procedures that had surprised them both. "Is that the celestial term for love?" she teased. Vex considered this with characteristic thoughtfulness. "No," he finally said, "but perhaps it should be." As the sun set over their garden, where plants from two worlds grew together in unlikely harmony, Iris reflected that some arrangements, no matter how clinical they might begin, had a way of developing their own unexpected, wonderful life.